Brian Skeel here. I am going to go ahead and show you kind of my process with editing vocals, and we'll start at the session level without anything actually in it. So as you can see, everything is already in groups. Nothing's mixed yet, so it's going to sound a lot different once this is all done. So I'm going to go through one of these folders, and everything is already disabled. Everything is bounced to audio, and the reason for this is because, you don't need to go through these folders at all. You're welcome to if you want, but this is going to help the process. Having everything bounced from an instrument down to audio is going to commit it, and that means I can't go back and change it later unless I go through a couple steps. And what that forces me to do is just keep moving, you know what I'm saying? But if I'm sending you a session that looks like this, that has all these folders and has a printed instrumental, we don't have to worry about what plugins are common between us. So that takes a lot of the guesswork out. So this doesn't have any vocals in it yet, and we have a folder, it's on my second screen here, of vocals that we are going to need to process. Now, the first thing that I want to do is noise reduction. So if you don't have an external editor, you would be importing these directly into Cubase and doing your noise reduction right there. I'm going to load everything into RX6. So I'm going to open this with Isotope RX6 editor. And I went ahead and selected BG3 because I already looked at these files. And what I want to do is I want to focus on the noise. And right now, I mean, you can tell she did some work here because we have some black areas where there was no audio. So she went and did some edits of her own, but there was a spot over here that she missed, which is great. That means that we can focus in on this and take a snapshot. So we're going to highlight this, and we're going to go to spectral denoise. I find this works a little bit better than voice denoise for singing vocals. And let's actually go back a little bit because she's probably breathing, like exhaling a little bit over here. And we're just going to learn this snapshot. Okay, so our profile has been saved, and we're just going to find a section over here, and we're going to leave it on best quality because we're going to let our processor do the work and print it down. And we're going to keep it mostly on gated. Musical noise is more like that 60 cycle hum. If there's a fluorescent bulb or like your microwave is making a hum or something like that, you would want to find the balance between that. And then of course your threshold and reduction, that is where the sound starts versus how much noise reduction you're doing. So let's go ahead and preview this.
Oh, everything will be so. Oh.
And this is another thing that's really great about RX6. This output noise only, you're able to listen to that and make sure you're just targeting the noise. If you creep these settings up too much, you're going to start to introduce some artifacts, which means that you're going to start to take away from the actual essence of the vocal. You'll hear that more clearly if you have the output noise only box checked. So make sure you check that. I'm going to uncheck it so that we can process and not only output the noise. I've done that before and it's devastating. You come back with a bunch of files that only have a noise floor, and that's terrible. And something else about this process is you want to take care of noise reduction first, because if you do this before you mix, for example, and you start to add compression and harmonic excitement and saturation, things like that, that noise floor is going to increase, which is going to make things a little bit muddier. It's going to make it harder to mix. So we want to take care of that first, and I always think it's best to do that before pitching, before time alignment, because you have the noise at its purest form. So that's one part of the process, is spectral denoising. I'm also going to use debreathing. So breath control. Jenny sounds like she was, pretty close to the mic throughout the entire performance. So she is breathing pretty heavily at the beginning of each phrase. So we're going to zoom in real close and find a breath like this one right here. That one's not too heavy. There's some heavier ones near the back. Let's move this guy out of the way.
Everything will be.
Okay, so that is a perfect breath. And let's go ahead and start to mess with that a little bit until the breath kind of goes away, but doesn't encroach upon the other frequencies or words or anything like that.
Everything. Everything.
Cool.
Everything.
So I could go absolutely crazy with this, but as you can tell, there at the end, we're starting to artifact a little bit, so we need to find a happy medium there.
Everything.
Beautiful. So we've got our spectral denoise, we've got our breath control. For some vocalists, you may want to use a declicker because we've got some people that they just had a drink of water, and so, you know, we got that ASMR kind of sound, and we want to get rid of that. Sometimes we'll want to use a deplosive. Hopefully we'll never have to use that because our singers will know to use some kind of pop filter, but this is there just in case. Declipper, this is really great if we have a clipped section of audio. First time I used this, it was absolutely magical. I didn't realize that a computer could do this. Really, really cool stuff. And then de-reverb, it's supposed to take a lot of the reflections and tail of the room out of the recording. So now we are going to do a batch processing of all 13 of our vocal files. We're going to go to Window, Batch Processing, and this is one of my favorite parts of RX7 or RX6, whichever version you're using, is you can tell it to batch process just tons of files using the settings that you have selected over here. So I'm going to go to my second screen, which has my folder with all my files, and I'm just going to drag them in here into input files, and there they all are. So now we have to come up with our processing steps, and it doesn't do this automatically, so we have to tell it that we want to do, let's see here, spectral denoise. And we're going to hit this plus again, and we're going to say breath control. Now, we need to make sure that the output breaths only checkbox is not on. Otherwise, we would be getting files with just breaths. How lame would that be? Right now, we don't have these settings recorded into our batch processor. So what we have set up here isn't going to be applied to these files. So we need to make sure that we hit record. And now the settings that we have in these two modules are in our batch processor. So we're going to find a folder to put these, but I'm going to create a new folder called edited so that we know where they are. They're right there. We're going to keep the same name because we're going to be able to tell them apart because one's in a folder. We're going to save them as waves, and then we're going to set the output option, and we're going to make sure that it's 24-bit so that when we import those wave files into Cubase, we don't have to worry about any kind of conversion. Great. So let's go ahead and hit OK, and let's process. Okay, and so this is going to take some time, so you can get some other prep work done or go make some coffee or whatever you want to do. But we're going to come back in the next video and start to import this stuff into Cubase.